The US president recently went on social media and issued a series of public, incredibly volatile ultimatums directed straight at Iran. Typically, heads of state rely on carefully measured diplomatic channels, but these posts read like the demands of a street-level enforcer, warning if Iran doesn't comply, their country will be living in hell. He laid out a precise timeline of destruction, publicly declaring that this coming Tuesday would be Power Plant Day, followed immediately by Bridge Day. This is an explicit public declaration by a superpower of its intent to systematically dismantle another nation's civilian infrastructure. According to the Geneva Conventions and established international law, deliberately targeting a country's civilian infrastructure is classified as a war crime. This animated schematic illustrates the core of the problem. Here is a standard power grid. Notice how it splits its energy supply, powering both a civilian hospital on one side and a military installation on the other. The military calls this the dual-use loophole. If an army utilizes the grid, it legally becomes a valid target. But destroying that grid triggers a cascading humanitarian disaster. Without power, hospitals fail immediately. Destroy the bridges, and you sever the public transport systems required to deliver food and medicine to civilian populations. The United States spent decades building the modern, rules-based international order. Now it is explicitly outlining the exact loopholes required to bypass those very rules. While the administration broadcasts threats abroad, an equally chaotic situation is unfolding inside the U.S. military command structure. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is the primary architect executing the administration's current approach to this conflict. Recently, Hegseth has started injecting a starkly religious ideology into the armed forces, stating in speeches that American soldiers are actively fighting this war for Jesus Christ. The United States military is composed of Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, agnostics, and people of various faiths. Telling them they are fighting a holy crusade has caused deep alarm among the military's own internal religious affairs officers. The administration is now actively converting an institution designed to be strictly apolitical into an ideologically driven weapon, fracturing its ranks right in the middle of an active conflict. For top-tier commanders who express opposition to this religious framing or the broader war strategy, the consequences are immediate. Multiple four-star generals and high-ranking officials have been abruptly fired or forced into mandatory retirement to silence their dissent. This sweeping purge of military leadership forced the U.S. Congress to step in and demand answers. During the hearings, Hegseth was repeatedly asked why these specific generals were fired. He refused to provide any strategic justification, stating only that military leaders serve at the pleasure of the president. By systematically removing internal critics and blatantly ignoring congressional oversight, the executive branch has effectively stripped away all domestic accountability regarding how it chooses to wage war. Combine the crude diplomatic threats with firing their own generals, and you see an administration operating without a long-term strategy, relying entirely on chaos. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, recently made an incredibly sharp assessment of this shifting geopolitical reality. He noted that in the modern era, everything today is being leveraged, if not actually weaponized. The dual tactics of threatening a nation's power grid and purging the Pentagon illustrate his point. Established rules are no longer viewed as laws to uphold, but merely obstacles to bypass. We are reverting to an old standard. Might makes right. The system operates on the logic that whoever holds the biggest stick gets to dictate the terms, and power is the only valid currency. If the world's sole superpower can openly outline plans that bypass international law, fire the generals who object, and frame a geopolitical conflict as a religious crusade without facing any consequences, the international rules of war are effectively dead.